We are live. Yes, di Facebook juga di YouTube, dan selamat meraihkan hari terakhir 2021 on my favorite day of the week. Saya dah katakan berulang-ulang kali bahawa I really love Friday. Hari Jumaat adalah hari yang penghulu segala hari. Kita buat doa hari Jumaat, semoga rezeki kita cari ini diberkati Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, dan juga bila penghujung tahun 2021 ni, saya hanya terfikirkan, you know what, saya memulakan Fiza O and Girlfriends dengan berharap sangat dapat mengetengahkan isu-isu berkaitan dengan wanita ataupun topik-topik community, topik-topik sosial, dan saya rasa bertuah sangat saya dapat really touch base dengan ramai wanita-wanita yang juga membincangkan, yang memperjuangkan isu-isu berkaitan dengan community, dengan wanita, dengan masyarakat kita. Dan hari ini saya dengan besar hatinya nak kongsi dengan anda bahawa saya ada wanita-wanita antaranya yang akan mewakili suara juga perspektif struggles, kesusahan ibu-ibu tunggal. Jadi kalau ada yang merupakan ibu-ibu tunggal yang sedang menonton saya live pada hari ini, pagi ini, jangan lupa untuk like and share, sebab antara bantuan yang akan dihulurkan oleh DOT, Daughters of Tomorrow, mungkin adalah apa yang awak cari, apa yang awak perlukan. Dan kalau awak juga nak bantu ya ibu tunggal atau wanita-wanita yang dapati kepayahan untuk go through life on the daily, secara harian, anda juga boleh ketahui caranya ya bila saya perkenalkan bukan pengasas tapi executive director untuk DOT sebentar nanti. Tapi sekarang ini, first and foremost, can I introduce you salah seorang kenalan saya yang kini jadi kawan saya. Ini dia Noor dari LEPAK Conversations.
Hi,
Hi
Fiza.
Noor. So nice to have you. Dan Noor of course is half of LEPAK Conversations. Beliau dengan Ana telah pun memperjuangkan LEPAK Conversations sejak 2020.
20, yeah.
Yeah, that was when the pandemic started, and then you girls were like, okay, what can we do untuk
we did
dapat?
it around elections. Yeah,
And that was the one that spurred
August.
LEPAK Conversations. And of course, nama you LEPAK Conversations dengan niat untuk dapat bincangkan isu-isu masyarakat Melayu Islam Singapura dengan secara santai, dengan secara lepak, dengan secara layman terms.
Yeah, like very accessible.
Right? So kita akan banyak sangat isu-isu yang telah pun Noor siapkan untuk kita nak kongsi sebentar nanti. The roundup of 2021 sebentar nanti. Tapi sekarang ni kita akan perkenalkan. Terima kasih Noor. I'll put you backstage right now. Sebab saya sekarang nak perkenalkan the Executive Director bagi Daughters of Tomorrow, DOT. Ini dia Fanny Lim.
Hi Fiza. Thank you everyone.
Fanny. Thank you first and foremost, for doing this on a very short notice. I'm just very grateful that you're doing this, although it's the holiday season. Dan saya akan bercakap dengan Fanny dalam bahasa Inggeris untuk waktu ini, because obviously, ini adalah bahasa yang lebih lagi selesa untuk Fanny Lim, pengarah eksekutif bagi Daughters of Tomorrow, yang essentially you're helping women generally who faces financial difficulties in going about their lives, their everyday lives.
That's right. So the local charity is set up to help women from the lower income communities. So bottom 10% in the Singapore society. And just that majority of them are mothers, and half of that number are actually single mothers. So I'm not it's more our observations of working on the ground with these women that I'm sharing with you, or will be sharing with you, about their struggles and challenges as well.
Wow. So bottom 10% of women in Singapore, and how do you get them? How do you reach out to them?
Yeah, so that's the interesting question, Fiza. So Dot, I'll call Daughters of Tomorrow in short, Dot. Yeah. Dot are actually made of a lot of people on the team are actually from the corporate sector. So we're not social workers or anything. We don't do means testing for these women, but we get them through the social workers around the island. So they could be referred to us by family service centers, the social service officers, by MSF. And when they come to us, we know that they are on financial assistance, and they usually are looking for employment that are both accessible and sustainable. And DOT works to facilitate that.
I see. And so coincidentally, you did say about half or more than half of these women who faces financial difficulties happen to be single moms.
Yeah, about half. That's right. Yes.
About half, and that's pretty much a big percentage. And the other half,
It is.
these women are.
So they're married, but
Mhm.
sometimes, even though you may be married, but the spouse could possibly be absent for some reason, whatever reason that could be, and or the husband could be working, but it's just not enough to make ends meet, and that's why
Um,
they're still on financial assistance.
mhm. And currently, how many single moms have or no or women? And I do know that DOT was actually set up since 2014.
That's right. Yeah.
And
Um,
that's an uphill task for you to reach out or to raise awareness for women to reach out to you as well.
Yeah, so thankfully, in the last 2 years or so,
Mhm.
I think the need have the need of assistance because of the pandemic. I think not just within the lower income community, like you have what we call the new poor people in Singapore, right?
The
They
new
were doing
poor.
very well. Yeah, they're doing very well, but then suddenly they become on the needing assistance end of the spectrum, and
Mhm.
thankfully because duty has been around for a while, so we
Mhm.
kind of become synonymous with single mothers sometimes, and people do reach out to us, and it's a growing number, I would say, by year on year. I mean, when we first
Mhm.
started, we probably have a class for maybe about helping 5 to 10 women type of thing, but now I think
Mhm.
every year about 400 or 4 to 500 women are coming to dot to receive uh,
Some form of
training.
help or supports.
That's right, that's right, yes.
That's a lot of women, which is
Yeah,
good. Which is
I
good that women
yeah.
are just getting awareness from women to know that where do they go to right now when you're like a single mom, you're facing difficulties, or like or you're married but you're facing a lot of difficulties in raising your children with financial difficulties. You do not know where to go exactly sometimes.
It's true. So, Fiza, this is a personal backstory,
Mm,
and I don't mean to badmouth my own father, but my mom, when I tell her what I do for a living, and then she'll be like, "Oh, that's so good," She's like, "Nobody helped me when I was, going through tough times." I mean, um, I have both parents, but the thing is that my father, he's passed on now, so bless him. But when he was a father, he was really quite absent. He was not there for when any of us were born, so he never changed a diaper in his life, that type of thing. So my mom was pretty much on her own. Yeah, she was like, "Oh, it's so great that you're doing this. I wish that there was some organization around that would help me back then." But yeah, anyway, I'm paying it forward. So I'm glad to be doing this. And it's amazing, you see these women, you might think that, oh, you need to help them, they're so poor thing kind of thing, but they're very resilient. I really admire them. All these women that come through our doors. I am a mom of 3 kids. My husband is very supportive, and then even then, it's not easy being a mom.
it's
But
not, yes.
yeah, and you see these women, the majority of them being mothers, and half of that being single moms. Wow, the things that they have to go through. I have a lot of respect for these women in our community.
The tenacity that they have within themselves to
Amazing.
raise a
Yeah.
family despite whatever adversities or the difficulties that they're facing right now. And Fanny, that was a beautiful story because it came from a very personal space for yourself, and so the drive that you have to help these other women to to pay it forward is extremely driven
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah, I guess it's part of what how I felt as a young,
Mhm.
like when I was a child. I didn't think I could do much for my mother.
Mhm.
And I think, I couldn't help my mom back then. I thought, hey, and now I can
Now.
help other mothers. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I put that drive into action. Yeah.
Wow. I mean I want to know I mean we've already kind of like know the portfolios or the profiles of women that DOT has helped. But here
Mm.
is one. Ini adalah antara contohnya wanita yang dibantu oleh DOT. Here's one of the women that DOT has helped. Let's take a look.
My name is Priscilla. I'm 36 years old, a single parent of two daughters, aged 14 and 11. I got married at a young age, so I don't really know what I was in for. As a young couple, we do not have stable income or the responsibility of being a parent. So we ended up having heated argument, and then he was abusive, which led to a divorce. I was not having a stable job, and then I went into depression. So I lost my self-confidence, and not being able to go out to work actually ends up with having debts.
Wow, that sounds depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Rosie is a very strong woman. I mean, if you know her personally, I mean, I do know her personally, and she's actually a very strong. You would not sense any sad vibes from her.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, she's really funny and strong, and I think just got to remember or be mindful that nobody enters a marriage to want to get divorced, and nobody wants to be a single mom. Actually, I mean, I think it's hard pressed choices when you're between a
Mhm,
rock and a hard place, and
mhm.
sometimes like Rosie's case, being in an abusive environment, and she's got two daughters. So, she made a choice for herself and her daughters. And I think, sometimes it could be a better thing.
I feel
Yeah,
like that video was very short. I mean, it was a longer video, but I actually trimmed it to be really short so
yeah,
that we could show it to our viewers today. And I felt that it although it was short, it really spoke a lot. Some people will go like, okay, you're a single mom, go and work, find money for your kids, right? Raise them up as you should. But the mental stress that they go through, in a marriage, that leads them have no ability to go to work, that leads them to more debts. And with bad things that happen one after another, it just kind of like puts you and just like drains you and makes you sink even further into
yeah.
problems.
Yeah. So in DOT, we do hire some of the dot women. And I do have a single mom colleague right now. Uh, I mean, now when you speak to her, she's so vibrant and she's so, she's very funny and, loud, loud when she laughs as well. Great joy to be with. And you will not know or realize that, she was at one point suicidal, because she just felt so alone. And she was just, struggling so much internally, feeling that there was no one before she came, before she came to know of Dot. She felt really alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, her story is on our website actually. So, you want to find out more, it's all there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it can happen to anyone. Sometimes we think that, it wouldn't happen to me, but I really think that when, if I am put in that situation,
Right.
I I probably would be crying buckets and feeling so alone as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
And for such single moms, most often it is the children which forces them to soldier on.
It's true. And just now I shared with you, my colleague,
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened to her. That moment when she felt like jumping down to end everything, her daughter cried out to her. And then that's when she just came to and decided to go and seek help. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I think, like I said, single moms, married moms, whichever, we just all want the best for our children. And
Yeah.
they are doing their best. But it's just that circumstances could be a bit hard pressed, like you
Yeah.
said,
Mhm.
fighting and just trying to survive.
And I have also another video by DOT, how your team actually tries to help these women, not just like monetary help is another, but giving them the chance to learn to survive on their own. It's another. It's a it's a long term help, right?
Mm,
And
mm.
I'm just gonna show you this everyone right now, this little short video that I trimmed from the original video of DOT.
Our job readiness program consists of courses and workshops that can help women regain confidence, hone their soft skills, and build a support network in their journey back to work. Our employment bridging team will then assist women to get ready for interviews, while we match them to suitable employers with their interests and career goals at heart. We work with empathetic employers while advocating for mom-friendly working hours and livable wages. Through this collaborative effort, we aim to create sustainable employment for the families and creative HR solutions for companies.
Wow. How do you do that? How does your team do that? How do you meet up with these, as you say, empathetic employees,
Yeah.
employers?
So maybe, Fiza, I share with you
Mm,
the principle that we hold very dearly at Dot, is the sense of belief in the women. And we don't see so much like we are helping them to become who they are, but because we actually believe, like, every woman being that seed, and every seed has a potential to grow into some form of tree. That
Mm.
potential actually lies within that seed rather than in the in an external party. So we try to help women to see that, to believe in themselves, because after facing many setbacks, every human being will probably be discouraged at some point and start doubting themselves. And so at duty we start off that our front foot is actually always believing in these women, helping them to see their own potential. And then
Mm-hmm.
we work towards the practical aspect of upskilling.
Mm.
And of course, on the other side of the spectrum, like the videos shared, we do look out for employers. We get them through like poverty sensitization workshop, helping them to understand this
What?
demographic of
Sorry?
people.
Sensitization?
Poverty sensitization workshop.
What happens in such a workshop? Poverty
Um,
sensitization
so
workshop.
it's basically helping simulating a day in the life of a woman, the kind of choices that people have to make.
Mm.
It's like what you said, sometimes when we look at someone poor and we say just go to work, but we don't understand that that $2 they could spend on the interview could also be lunch for the child. So it's
Yes.
choices like this that people like you, I myself, were not
Yeah.
aware of, because I just tap
Right.
easily, very easily,
Right.
every low value, then top up long, but
Yeah.
actually there's a minimum value to top up as well. You need to have like
ten
$10 kind of
dollars.
thing. Yeah, if I don't
Yeah.
have that in my pocket, I can't go anywhere, right?
Right.
So I think it's just helping people to see the kind of choices that these women have to make, or anybody from the low income group have to make. And it helps us to see that being poor in Singapore is actually very expensive. Yeah, I mean, we can't.
Yet sometimes we forget that we're living a privileged life for some of us.
Mm, mm.
That we forget
That,
to
that
empathize on the finer things in life, like that.
Yeah, I mean, buying diapers as well, right? Like, usually they have promotion, buy two packs is cheaper than buying one pack kind of thing. But hey, buy two packs, need that cash on hand.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
people do make more expensive choices because they're poor. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just an example of that. So yeah, and we put employers through, or corporate partners through, some of these workshops to help them understand the other side. And so when they hire these women, they are able to understand better the kind of struggles behind for example, the no-show at work. And
Mm.
literally, I remember this single mom, I bridged her to employment, and she was in the job for a week. And in that week, the childcare center called her up twice because her son has had an accident one time, and then had some flu, and then she's got to miss her
Mm.
shifts. And the employer, I mean, well intentioned and well meaning as he was, just felt quite frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yet
And
it
especially
is.
now with COVID, with all this flu happening, you have to bring your child home.
That's right. Yeah,
And so who takes
immediately.
care of the child if you're the only mom or the only parent in this situation?
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, that has happened to me as well. My kid, my youngest, 3 times during the year, kind of thing. And yeah, and it disrupts the workflow, right?
Yeah.
I get to work flexibly. I have all these luxury kind of thing. But I mean, the luxury of being able to work from home. I mean, but yeah,
That's a
it's
luxury
just
itself in
different
itself.
for some of the mothers who have to work on site. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
So
that's a very
yeah, so
interesting
we help
point.
employers to see on that.
Sorry, Fanny,
Yeah,
I
sorry,
think I'm
Fiza, go
losing
on.
you right now. Yeah, no, I mean that's a luxury in itself to be able to work from home because the lower wage workers sometimes don't have that opportunity to be working from home. They are usually pretty much hands on. They are pretty much frontliners who have to be there physically at work, and they are not able to bring your child to work. Right, unlike some of us who are able to work from home, who are able to have your child next to you while you are doing your proposals or your drafts or your admin work from home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this 2 years has come to show us like frontline workers are actually very valuable,
Very very good.
when,
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
when all the other sectors had to close, we said frontline workers are essential workers. And so
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that, society will shift in terms of how we perceive people should be paid, because they are doing an essential service. So I think we will do much better as a society if we consider paying people better wages, even though we think that, I mean, it's the value of work, right? What we tag to say how much this person will cost, their labor will
Mhm.
cost. And I
Mhm.
think it would be great if we can learn from some other countries. I mean, when I tell my younger cousins who works in Australia before, I said, oh, people are still earning $7, $8 an hour. Because yesterday we went to my sister's burger shop to help her stick stickers, right? And then we said,
Mm.
oh yeah, 2 hours you get $15. And then she's like, oh wow, that was the money I earned when I was a trainee in a F&B. So yeah, I think it'd be great for us to recognize that there is great value in these frontline workers, what they're doing for us as a society, and be willing to pay a little more, like 50 cents more for a bowl of noodles, all of us. And then, it just raises their income and standard of living so much more.
If all of us chip in just to help.
That's right.
And what would you? I mean, before we say, thank you to Fanny for sparing your time today to share with us what DOT has helped. How DOT has helped moms and or like women generally who are low income women, and we can also invite women if they aren't aware of yet of DOT to know where to go and get help from us, or if you're interested in helping and supporting such women, this low income female community, to please do come forward as well. Before that, what are some of the wins that you would consider as a good win for DOT this year, for Daughters of Tomorrow this year, for 2021?
Yeah, I think the wins are just seeing how the women have, just blossomed into their own. I mean, it's so Fiza, the thing is that as a society, we somehow expect people to just be smooth sailing, and then, like after PSLE, then you go to the O levels,
Yeah.
and then you just keep advancing kind of thing. And we somehow expect life to be like that, but it's not like that. Life is more like a dance, cha-cha, a few steps forward, a few steps
Yeah.
back,
Yes.
but
Yes.
so long
Yes.
as you're making progress and
Yeah.
can still keep your chin up and still be in good spirits and fighting on. I mean, it's crazy. Like I shared with you, we have an internship program at Daughters of Tomorrow right now, where we
Mhm.
bring on board these women, and in the midst of, because they are mothers, they're not able to hold down the full-time job right now because of disruptive, be it the disruptive scheduling for school, or they could be still fighting court cases,
Right.
but they come on board to help us, and it's amazing to
It's
see them,
amazing.
yeah, to still want to make something, be meaningfully engaged, to still upskill themselves. And I remember, one of the interns, actually, she was in the hospital, but she joined in, she dialed in and was part of our team meeting, even though she's on the hospital bed. Yeah, so to me, I'm like, that's a win right there. That you
Mhm.
show up,
Yeah.
even though you are in, in a pickle, and
Mhm.
still you're there.
Yeah.
And I think to see some of these women fight on, and to still try to stand up and go for interviews, get the job that they want and pursue their dreams. We have some of these women in our midst, in the community, and they actually are volunteering with us as well. So they in turn
Wow.
become trainers and facilitators of these confidence calls. So yeah, it's amazing. Like, because like I said,
That's a
I
beautiful dream. I mean, that's a beautiful win because during your struggles, you most often you lose sight of your dream,
mm,
and for them
mm,
to regain it back, that takes a lot. That takes a whole lot to find yourself back again and to understand or to remember what you used to love and what you used to want for yourself.
that's right, Fiza. And so one of the support group is actually like the divorce support group,
Mm-hmm.
that some of these women have set up to support each other. And
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing because I haven't gone through a 7-year battle for my house,
Mm-hmm.
matrimonial home. I'm not an expert, and I cannot be giving advice, but some of these women have. And so
Mm-hmm.
they are the moderators of those groups, and they are giving advice to other moms who are struggling and going through these challenges. So to me, that is a big win. Like you said, to see them come up again and believe in themselves and empower another.
And empower another. That's like another level of win altogether.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah,
you empower another, you have basically kind of like empowered yourself to be able to do that for
that's right.
others. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Fanny. And do not forget to join. Daughters of Tomorrow is also on Facebook. Is of course on all social media platform, on your LinkedIn, on your Instagram, on Facebook, and they are very active online. So do reach out if you do need help, and do reach out if you want to give help as well. So I want to celebrate, the end of 2021 with kindness, with compassion, in any way possible. If you want to contribute in terms of monetary, in terms of support, in terms of your time, your effort. And what I do know, of course, also is DOT has you do introduce child minding service to some of the DOT members.
So all our workshops come with child minding support. So volunteers are on site while the mothers go for maybe their 8 weeks, or maybe even an ad hoc session of interview and resume writing workshop. Volunteers are on site to take care of the kids. But there's also another child minding initiative, which are actually powered by the women themselves, actually. So lower
Wow.
income mothers, child mind, other groups, other children of lower income mothers, to enable them to go out to work sustainably. Because sometimes the late pickup fees can be quite hefty. If the women
Mhm.
finish shift late and they are late to pick up their kids, to avoid some of these kind
Late
of
charges.
penalties. Yeah, that's right. A community childminders can step in and help to bring
Mhm.
the child back, or in between therapy and things like that. So there is a
Wow.
community childminding network that is actually facilitated by the women themselves, and it's been great running in 2 areas in Singapore. We hope to expand it a lot more in the coming year. So yeah, do let us know if you're interested to support in any way, or be one of the childminders actually. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been Fanny Lim, Executive Director of Daughters of Tomorrow. And right now, we're going to bring back to the screen Noor from LEPAK Conversations. Thank you, Fanny. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you. Yeah. Happy
Bye-bye.
New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to you too. Baiklah, kita akan terus kembali bersama dengan Noor sekarang ini. Hi Noor, thank you for
Hi,
being
Fiza.
backstage. You've been very quiet backstage, but padahal memang tak boleh cakap tak backstage.
Yeah, it was very
uh,
interesting to listen to Fanny and like listen to what DOT has done for women in Singapore. Yeah, that was a
right?
very valuable conversation.
Yeah, it is. It's that sometimes it's the small things that add up to like a huge
Mm,
difference in someone's
yeah.
life. Kan macam orang ingat macam, oh okay, kita selalu nampak kadang-kadang ni kata-kata motivasi di
Mm,
Instagram lah, kat Pinterest lah, kat mana lah. Everyone can make it if you only just hustle on, if you only just work on. But
mm,
untuk kita, jadi kadang-kadang it kind of desensitize us and makes us feel
yeah.
like if you're not getting somewhere, you're probably lazy. You're not getting somewhere, probably
Mm,
you're not doing it, kan? Tapi
mm,
how do
yeah.
you do it? How do you go to a job interview kalau dalam beg
Mm,
duit you cuma memang ada $5 aja,
yeah.
dan you
And tak
tahu
ada
you
orang,
pergi balik
yeah, and tak ada orang
apa pun.
jaga anak also.
And
Yeah.
macam mana nak pergi job interview bawa anak?
Yeah.
Right? And like I said to Fanny earlier on, I feel sometimes we forget that it's usually the lower wage workers yang tak boleh kerja dari rumah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Sebab kalau kita nak kerja dari rumah, usually we need computer, strong internet connection, and these are
Internet
things that
connection.
we take for granted, right?
Right.
And yeah, we just don't think about these things because to us it's just a given and we have it there. But
Right.
for low income families, that's just not the
Every
case.
single thing. Duit.
Yeah.
Every single thing is mahal. Every single thing is like, macam mana like how It's mind-boggling, like how do you survive every day kan?
Yeah.
Kalau, macam kita like you say, Wi-Fi is a
Mm.
given di rumah.
Mm.
Laptop,
Yeah.
okay lah, it comes off to, you think it's zero cost to you. Tapi untuk
Mm.
seseorang untuk pasang Wi-Fi dekat rumah,
Mm.
or probably your house is like jenis yang electricity tu pakai gunakan card, like you have to top up every single month.
Mm.
That's another thing untuk
Yeah.
bimbangkan. So
Mm.
thank you Fanny. I feel like just now so I had a lot of insightful discussion walaupun ringkas dan pendek. And and I'm also very thankful. Thank you Noor from LEPAK Conversations untuk luangkan masa hari ini. Awal tahun ini, I think about a few months ago gitu, saya,
Mm.
Noor,
Filza.
Hikmah dan juga Filza,
Yeah.
kita telah pun we got together sebab tentang topik sexual harassments, and we've been like kind of like in touch as and when, tapi dan bila saya nak wrap up 2021, I fikir okay, you know what, let's I'm going to be in touch again with what I what I believe in and what Fiza O and Girlfriends is essentially about. Untuk dapat kita dekatkan diri dengan isu-isu community, isu-isu wanita, or basically community as a generally. Dan Lepak Conversation seperti kata Noor, it started off in trying to explain situations or stories in layman terms
Yeah, like
dengan cara yang
any
paling mudah
issues,
difahami.
yeah, relating to the Malay Muslim community, the goal is to try to explain it as simply as possible and encourage people to have discussions about it. Because I think when people think about macam racism and big issues like income inequality, that kind of things, like they think that only a certain kind of person would be qualified to talk about it. Maybe mungkin like professor atau macam political analyst who can talk about these kind of things, right? But we want to raise awareness on these issues, then we think everybody should participate in the conversation. When we want to ensure that something is like a societal issue, then everybody has to get involved. People have to be able to understand what we are talking about and what can be done together. Yeah.
Dan and you are right, kadang-kadang ni bila kita terlalu rasa macam takkanlah aku nak fikirkan pasal benda ni, I'm not well versed. I ni bukan seorang graduate, I bukan ada master, bukan I bukan some professor, some corporate person untuk layak fikirkan tentang hal-hal kemasyarakatan. But actually everyone can think and be a part of it because it involves
Yeah.
everyone kan.
Yeah. Yeah, we should be part of it. Yeah.
Dan for know yourself, sebagai sebahagian dari Lepak Conversations, sebab tadi I tanya kepada Fanny what are some of the wins for DOT, for Daughters of Tomorrow. Dia katanya antara the wins is basically untuk for them to show up, untuk mereka nak dapatkan bantuan. That to them is a big win already kan. And I feel like yes, untuk for them to want to get help, for someone who can be depressed nak keluar dapatkan bantuan, that's a win. For Lepak Conversations untuk tahun 2021, apakah yang awak rasa yes, that's a win for individual or a win for community?
I think for us, like because our name is Lepak Conversations, right? For us, I think the biggest win has been when people have more conversations about certain issues that we don't usually talk about. So this year, for instance, macam a lot more people started talking about racism. A lot more people started talking about gender issues because this year was supposed to be Singapore's year to celebrate women.
Yeah,
And
Women's
then
Year.
Yeah, and then we also had the change in the tudong policy, and people were talking more about that also. There was more awareness. So for us, as long as there's more awareness on issues, people are talking about it more, that's already a big win for us. And because on our page, bila kita bincang tentang isu-isu ni semua, kita juga cuba untuk selitkan macam the steps that people can take to improve on certain things, or like how people can contribute. Yeah, but I think tahun ini just in general, Singapura telah mengharungi pelbagai cabaran, and masyarakat Melayu, kaum minoriti, kita telah mengalami macam pelbagai detik-detik yang agak pahit mungkin. And Lepak Conversations banyak bincang tentang isu-isu ini semua, tapi kita pun ingin macam akhiri tahun ini on like a good note, on like a very encouraging note, so that next year we go into a new year with like renewed energy and that strong motivation to continue doing whatever good work that we've been doing this year, because a lot of people have been involved in different issues, especially on the online space. So for instance, kalau at least to me, I think the tudong issue, the change in policy, that has been a really big win, not just for the Malay Muslim community, I think for Singapore, because walaupun perjalanan kita masih agak jauh untuk mereka masyarakat yang lebih inklusif, tapi this policy change has definitely been a big win for Singapore. It's a good signal for everybody in Singapore. And I think for us on this issue, it has very wide and far-reaching implications. Polisi ni ia membolehkan atau membenarkan wanita Muslim, jururawat Muslim untuk bekerja dalam suatu like sektor, dan mereka tidak lagi perlu pilih sama ada mereka ingin jadi jururawat atau mereka ingin pilih pekerjaan yang akan membolehkan mereka gunakan tudung. And just the fact that they're not forced to make that choice anymore, right? That they can go become a nurse if they wish to become a nurse and wear the tudung at work, like that, giving them that choice, and not forcing them to choose between their religion and their career, like that's a big win on its own, right? And I think just also the fact that even though there was some pushback and things like that, I think the response from our allies, from people who are not from the Muslim community, like it was very encouraging also, to see banyak mereka daripada masyarakat lain yang amat
Berbeza. Yang bersatu hati.
supportive, bersatu hati, and were openly talking about it also. Like they wanted us to openly talk about it. They wanted to understand. So we really saw like a huge movement, especially online, in response, in support of this policy change. And I think for us, looking forward, I think we wanted to emphasize that differences atau perbezaan tu tidak semestinya perkara yang tak baik. Like they are not, it's not inherently bad to be different, right? And if people start to understand that perbezaan kita tu yang membuat kita lebih macam unik dan lebih kuat apabila kita bersama, right? Like our strengths make us stronger when we are together. Then it can foster stronger bonds and it can lead to better outcomes for Singapore as a whole. And because of that policy change also, for the nurses, we saw Royal Plaza on Scots, they are like the first hotel to announce that they were going to allow their Muslim staff to wear the hijab. And that's also like a big thing, because a lot of times we hear macam we collect data from people who wear tudung, and they tell us that their employers don't let them pakai tudung sebab they feel that if you are on the front line you pakai tudung, people will feel that you are biased or like it's unprofessional in some way. And the fact that the hotel chose to do this for like their very front facing staff, like it kind of contradicts the belief that people who wear tudung don't belong on the front lines. So that was also something very powerful. Like it was definitely a move that we appreciated. And you see that when the public healthcare sector made this change, like there is like trickle down effects, and hopefully other industries will follow also. So this tudung thing was a really big win for me for LEPAK Conversations, because we've
LEPAK
been
Conversations.
talking
Who
about
have you
issues for
interviewed
very long.
prior to that, Noor dan juga Ana?
Interviewed
like,
on the
you interviewed, like what were some of the infographics, like macam what were some of the sharings that you did, that you felt like macam I feel like I have communicated, I dah sikit sebanyak contributed ataupun sumbangkan pada, spark little changes like this
so I
into a
think
big change like that.
the main one I think was when we first started in 2020. We started with the tudung issue, so we did explain the significance of the tudung, why Muslim women wear tudung, and we started from that place of trying to get as many people as possible to understand. And then this year, when that parliamentary discussion happened, and it happened on International Women's Day, and like a lot of people were quite upset by it. So but again, parliamentary discussions and debates may not be fully accessible. People may not fully understand it, right? So we
The whole
did
context of it,
post,
kan?
and maybe the language used by the ministers also. So we did a post to break that down, and that post got quite a lot of engagement, and people became more interested in the issue once they could fully understand what was going on. And that I think also contributed to getting more people involved, more people interested in the issue, like non-Malays, non-Muslims.
And I think like LEPAK Conversations this year has like gotten a lot of traction ataupun banyak a lot more youngsters, a lot more. Wait, what would you say the bulk of the followers of LEPAK Conversations, the age
I
group?
think 18 to 35.
18 to 35. And usually like macam bila kita cakap pasal hak community issues, kita akan kaitkan dengan mereka yang lebih lagi berusia, like mungkin like above 35, like above 40 perhaps, kan. Tapi sekarang ni like a lot more youngsters, a lot more young youth, youth like macam 18 tahun or like 16 years old are more engaged, like lebih lagi nak faham, kan. And I think that's a win by itself, like awareness, keinginan untuk terlibat sama, the love for the country, the love untuk dapat ambil berat, keisanan, to have compassion and empathy, and I think that's nice.
And I think we saw that especially in terms of the race issues in Singapore this year, I think we saw a few like articles and comments by our ministers, by PM, saying that, oh, the young people, they have a different approach to issues of race and they want to talk about it openly. And we saw our leaders taking our young people more seriously, and wanting to listen to what the young people had to say. And that is definitely a win. Like as a relatively young person, I definitely feel more like heard and seen. And because in 2021, unfortunately, there was that series of like very racist incidents that happened. And some people were saying it's because of the pandemic. Some people were saying that, oh, mungkin orang yang lakukan perbuatan racist tu kurang siuman. Like they were making all sorts of excuses for the acts of racism, and a lot of people stepped up to discuss very complex issues of how mental health shouldn't be or like mental illness shouldn't be conflated with racism, or how this like xenophobia or this racist behavior, it has always been there. It's just that perhaps it hasn't been very seen until now. We have social media, but it has always existed. We need to talk about it. And for LEPAK conversations, we definitely felt that this was a good learning opportunity for Singaporeans to hold space for minorities, to be more empathetic, to have these difficult conversations together. And we did a post on the People's Association incident, and that even that incident, we knew that it was pretty divided. So there were people in the community who felt that, oh, ni macam it's just tersalah, macam tersalah letak
Genuine
gambar
mistake,
kahwin. Yeah, it's not like a race issue. Like there were people who definitely felt that it wasn't a race issue, and to me, it's like, okay, fair. It's your opinion. If you feel like you weren't hurt by it or you weren't harmed by it, then that's fair. But there was also like a big group of Muslim and Malay people in Singapore who did feel very hurt by it, because your culture is misrepresented, you were misunderstood to at this extent, and then the apology that came afterwards. So we also discussed that, and we wanted to explain the viewpoint of those people who were hurt. And I think that's another like point that we try to emphasize, that we don't represent everybody. Lepak Conversations doesn't try to represent the entire Malay Muslim community, but we do want to represent those that feel hurt or feel that there are certain issues that need to be talked about, and we help them to verbalize these issues and discuss these issues. But the main message that we wanted to bring across, at least for the following year, like looking forward when it comes to race issues, that it's important to be an ally, and we have to come from a place of understanding, not from a place of defensiveness. And that this year, I think, was just macam, I think the one when it comes to mind is penat. Like people were really just penat when it came to race issues. Minorities were just very, very tired, because it is very mentally draining. And as much as Lepak Conversations, we try to have these discussions. Our comment section, usually we leave it open. We don't delete any comments unless it's like very offensive or anything. We try to have open discussions, right? But it is very exhausting to have intellectual discussions about issues of racism and things that really affect you, right?
It's
So
extremely sensitive, yeah.
yeah, and it
And you have to
is
be very careful with your words, the choice of
mm,
words that you're
yeah,
posting, because you're not about to um, as I said, it's
mm,
extremely sensitive. Your
yeah,
postings, and you to have it an open conversation. It's something that we have to be a lot of managing. What kind of
yeah.
DMs? What kind of like private messages does Lepak conversation have?
Yeah, so we've gotten actually we've gotten a lot more support than hate,
Mm-hmm.
which we very much appreciate. Like the whatever like hate or any like bad DMs and comments have been a minimum, which we really appreciate. But we have gotten people who would say that, like, oh, your post on racism, it's counterproductive. Like, I don't think people will be receptive to it. I don't think it's a good idea, and like things like that. And as much as possible, we try to reply. We try to understand their point of view also.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the place we come from. And I think for us, when we talk about issues of racism, it's important not to blame any one person, because most of the time, any issues of racism is systemic. It's just been in like maybe our daily lives, perhaps our policies unintentionally, of course. And we just have to realize that it's systemic. It's not just one person's fault, and everybody has to come together, change our mindsets, change our social attitudes in order for change to happen. So that's how we try to manage
Look
the
at
issue
every
lah.
single different POV point of view. And I rasa macam like
Mm,
it's interesting because you have so many people from polarizing opinions, and the things that we embrace all kinds of opinions is to disagree agreeably. Kan macam like, you know,
agree
it's
to
of course
disagree. Yeah.
agree to disagree. Yeah, wait, agree to
Mm,
disagree. And do it in a nice manner. It's always to be polite.
mm,
It's always okay. I listen. I hear you. These are my
mm,
thoughts and these are my opinion. And let's listen to yours. Let me see what's the place you're coming from.
mm.
Kan?
Yeah.
Macam kalau kita dengar pendapat tu takkan kita seseorang je betul kan? Kita tu, oh
Mm.
okay, that's how you feel. Let me see. Do you feel like macam all these different thoughts and pendapat telah pun banyak mematangkan lepak conversation just within a year?
Yeah, for sure. We definitely learn a lot from our followers because we would usually try to look at our post. When we post something, like people will reshare the post and we'll look at
Mm,
the reshares and see what people
mm,
are saying. And if there are interesting perspectives, we'll definitely take it into consideration. And we are not worried about being wrong. Like if we are wrong,
mm,
we will definitely edit our stuff. Yeah, so it's been a good learning experience, even like for me and Anna. For sure, we learn a lot more from the discussions we have compared to the things that we actually post. Yeah.
mm,
And I think another like interesting aspect of it is that we realize that when you talk about like racial issues, race issues,
mm.
it's important to be sensitive, but at the same time we also don't want to end up censoring people who are actually upset, because when you're upset, I think you should be given a right to
Yeah,
express why you're upset. Like we don't want to
yeah.
be the one to censor you, you know, like it's not fair also. So it's been interesting trying to like balance that. And yeah, like the diagram that you're showing right now, we talked about this in terms of how we think Singapore can improve. So this is Milton Bennett's framework on how the more culturally sensitive people become, the more we move towards ethno relativism. And that word ethno relativism just means that we seek to understand cultural differences, we accept its importance, and we adapt our perspectives, and take into account other people's perspective, and we integrate the whole concept into a definition of like someone's identity. So basically, it just means that we try to be more empathetic and understand other people's point of view and their cultures, and see their cultures from their perspective, instead of trying to look at it from like what we think that culture is and why we think the differences are.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
it's
It's to
us moving
ambil
towards.
berat untuk ambil tahu.
Yeah,
Like
yes,
take time
exactly.
to
Yeah.
make effort to get to know.
Mm,
And so
mm,
you are a lot more I would say aware about, it's like, you know, getting to know your partner. Cannot just assume your partner will like what you like or do what you do.
mm,
You gotta understand and dissect what he likes to do, what he doesn't like to do, to be able to come to like like a nice soft spots between the,
mm,
sweet
yeah.
spot between the two of you kan.
Mm,
And can you imagine like living with like a lot more people of differences around you
mm,
kan. And I
yeah.
think, and was that the infography that Lepak Conversation came up with?
I think that was from online, and then
Mhm.
Anna designed like a much nicer infographic for our post. Yeah, but this was the one that I got online, I think. But yeah, it was important for us to include infographics in our post to help people understand better, because like at least on that infographic you could see there was a scale, and we actually
Mhm.
pointed out where on the scale we think Singapore is at. So we
Oh,
yeah, so I
because
think
I'm
in
very
our
active
post.
on your Instagram actually. Please do follow them on their Instagram. They actually like, posting a lot about banyak IG live. Dan oh, congrats, this year is your first year, your first anniversary.
Yes. Thank
Dan
you for coming on our first
thank you for
anniversary
having me
show.
on. To talk about
Yeah,
media and how media shapes
the way
society
we
or the
think.
community
And,
as a whole
yeah.
kan.
Mm,
Dan right now what Lepak Conversation is having tengah adakan adalah interview dengan ramai lagi Ya, ada yang dapat menghasilkan buku, basically mencerita sejarah in their own field, their own field of work, which I think is really amazing. Please go on to Lepak Conversation di Facebook, and I think you guys are also quite active di LinkedIn.
Anna, I think, is quite active on LinkedIn. Like Anna
On
will share
LinkedIn.
some of our stuff on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, Instagram is where we are most active. That's
Yeah.
like our main
The
platform.
18 to 35 like movement is on Instagram.
Yeah.
Ini adalah juga satu artikel yang like you wanted to also share with us, Noor.
Mm, yeah, so this one is on the gender issues. So I think this year, because it's been the Singapore's year for celebrating like SG women, right? There's been a lot more discussions on like things like the double care burden on women, especially in light of the pandemic. And then we also had a lot more discussions on like sexuality education and how that can be improved. And the ministers were talking about what MOE is already currently doing and what can be done to improve things. And it's important to start young. Like, these were very important conversations that were had this year. I would say it hasn't been the greatest year for women. There were many incidents that happened, but like I said, at the end of the year, like this at this point of the year, we're trying to like look forward and think positively. So these are the good things. I think it's good that we've had more discussions on like things like sexuality education, where we usually try not to talk about it. Like, even in the Malay Muslim community, I think we see this as something that's quite macam malu and like
Sensitif,
taboo.
tak boleh
Yeah,
cakap,
like
tak
we
boleh
don't want to
cakap.
talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
good that we've had more conversations about this. And in terms of Lepak Conversations ourselves, we also did our own research on like Muslim women's issues. We had our report come out this year, and we managed to meet up with our religious leaders and our like actual like countries leaders to discuss the findings of our report. And our leaders were very receptive to the data that we collected and the recommendations that we had. So yeah, hoping that some of these things will help the community. And I think another notable thing in terms of gender in like Singapore, we also had Google feature Che Zahara. Like, I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but actually,
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of people haven't heard of her, which is
This is the
like,
one.
people need to know more about her. Because she's a Malay Singaporean lady, and she founded Singapore's first Muslim women's welfare organization, which was
Oh, Cik
called the
Zahara.
MWWA in like 1947. And
Wow.
it was at her home, and it was in a well-known like red light district, but it worked in her favor because that meant that she was closer to the people that she was trying to help. And she initiated programs giving them education, practical skills. So before DOT, she was like the OG
The
person
OG,
like in
yes.
Singapore.
I
Yeah.
think before a lot of
Yeah,
organizations, kan? She's like
she was the
she's
first.
yeah,
Yeah, like the
yeah,
first women's organization
yeah.
in Singapore. Yeah. So she also wrote like plays to be performed as a protest against the ability of a man to divorce their wife without like legal inquiry, without needing to go to court. Like, at that time, men could just divorce their wives. So
Oh,
she wrote like 4 plays on it to protest, and she
thank you for
fought.
bringing to light. I mean, like we should know. I mean, I've heard, but I tak.
Mm,
I did not go in depth in nak cari Cik Zahara ni. To
mm,
and the fact that Google acknowledge
yeah,
Cik Zahara,
yeah,
dia punya
yeah.
kerja-kerja kemasyarakatan yang dia buat as early as
Mm,
1950.
1947. Yeah.
1947. Wow, she
Mm,
is so she is
yeah.
like so woke like way ahead of time, kan?
Yeah, I mean, even now people are reluctant to help sex workers. Like, people don't want to go and help. And she was already doing it. And her home was
Yeah,
in the red light district. So
yeah.
she's very progressive. She's definitely like what I
Dia
would
yang
call like
mulia.
an
Yeah,
intersectional feminist. Like, she chooses to help all women. It doesn't matter.
non-judgmental.
Yeah, like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter their profession or like their income background, things like that. Yeah, and she encouraged women to donate blood also, which is like just another random thing that she did on top of all the other things she was doing. But yeah, so it was very inspiring, and I thought it was important for
Tahun
people to know.
1947 untuk awak ajak orang untuk derma darah. I mean,
Mm.
they'd be like, kau nak buat apa ke derma darah kan? But she is like so way ahead of like she's like a
Mm.
different league altogether kan?
Mm.
Like you say, like
Yeah.
intersectional feminist, bantu
Mm.
wanita yang datang dari pelbagai latar belakang, ada
Mm.
keluarga, tak ada keluarga, belum kahwin, dah kahwin, ataupun dari latar belakang yang orang waktu tu tak nak bantu langsung, latar belakang
Mm.
yang orang cakap macam, oh ini perempuan tepi jalan kan,
Mm.
tapi
Yeah.
they don't know what's the background of that woman kan,
Mm.
betapa susahnya payah dia, adakah dia ada anak, ada keluarga, ada
Mm.
mak ayah yang tua, yang so basically Cik Zahara is really ahead of her time. Please Google her
Yeah.
up. It's on
Yeah.
Google. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think it's just important to macam, because even for me when I think of like feminism and things like that, I think immediately of like people in the West. Like
Mm-mm.
I immediately think of like Michelle Obama and things like that. But we
Yeah.
have our
Yeah.
very own
Cik
OG
Zahara.
feminists here in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from our own community. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something to celebrate, and she was featured on Google this year as like
Yeah.
the Google Doodle. Yeah, and another thing I think, another notable thing was there was this book launched by PPIS, I believe, on
Mhm.
inspiring Malay Muslim women. So that book was launched, and I believe the proceeds were donated to a certain cause. So I got the book also, and it's just a really good read. So people should definitely get it. I'm not sure if it's still in stock, but yeah, like just a compilation of different women from different walks of life and how they
Wow.
they inspire people in one way or another.
How, I mean,
So
do
yeah.
you even know like how mana buku ni boleh beli dan dijual untuk mengiktirafkan 20 wanita Melayu Islam Singapura?
I think it should be on Kinokuniya, I think,
Kena
and I
kunyah,
think
okay.
Wardah Books carries it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it that people ambil masa untuk tulis tentang wanita-wanita Melayu Singapura yang banyak menyumbang sebelum pada masyarakat, who are very much important untuk memperjuangkan different issues that helps, as I say, an individual or community of people. Sebab jarang sekali kita berikan masa untuk mengiktirafkan kerja keras orang-orang macam gini, yang giving their
Yeah.
heart and soul kan. Ada yang
Mm.
bukan for no monetary gains pun. Jadi untuk ada orang macam Nur Haja yang tuliskan buku, yang ciptakan buku untuk wanita-wanita ini, kita dapat lagi kenal lagi, menghargai
Mm.
kerja mereka, because I feel like good things will motivate more good things to come.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
So that's a good book. Yes. Terima
Mm.
kasih Nur for letting us know. I'm like learning like, wait, what else Nur?
Yeah,
Do
and
tell. Okay.
yeah, I think for gender, those were like the main like wins or highlights for LEPAK conversations. For me personally, I think these are like the main things. And I think another issue that really came to the forefront this year was migrant worker issues. So LEPAK conversations, we also just recently finished our migrant worker series, and I think the Muslim community, we do realize that we work usually very closely with our migrant worker community. We see them volunteering at our mosques and all that before COVID, and a huge majority of the migrant worker community, they are Muslims also, and they are eligible zakat recipients. So actually, there's this group called SG Muslim for Migrant Workers. They usually do fundraising for migrant workers, and they do it I think mainly during Ramadan, and they do collect zakat. They are like able to collect zakat, and they have I think testimonies from asatiza that say that migrant workers are eligible for zakat. So they will collect these funds. They partner with Transit Workers Council, like TWC2, and they would channel these funds to the migrant workers. Because I think this year, one of the main things that have happened is that Singaporeans are more aware of the struggles that migrant workers go through. So macam we saw migrant workers kena naik lori, duduk dekat belakang lori, and then lori tu kalau masuk kemalangan, then a lot of the migrant workers, like it would lead to very fatal consequences. So these were like some of the issues that we heard more about this year, and people became more engaged, and people became more interested to help. So I think I'm hoping for all these conversations this year to translate into more action next year, to be able to help the migrant workers And we also had our IG live with 3 migrant workers who shared with us their
It's on
perspectives
your
of what
IG feed
it's
right
like.
now kalau you terlepas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
If you
shared
missed
with
it, kalau
us.
you terlepas, you basically can just like go through and then you will see the interview with the 3 migrant
Yeah.
workers yang, how did you find them, Noor? Macam mana
So
awak jumpa? Macam mana awak cakap, okay, can you be on Lepak Conversations?
we work very closely with Shirin Chua, who's the
Ah.
co-founder of SG Muslims for Migrant Workers. So she was the one who helped us to reach out to them, and like we had a short meeting. We told them what issues we were talking about and how we wanted to help them, but that we wanted them to be the main focus. We wanted them to tell their stories, and we would just listen because I think it's important to hear from like their perspective. And they told us about how it was like living in Singapore, how it's like working in Singapore, and what they hope Singaporeans can do more. Like, and some of them actually said, like they want Singaporeans to be friends with them,
Oh,
and
okay.
remember that they are humans, and they are humans who are living here alone, very far from their families. They are very isolated. So it's important, and they said that they would appreciate it if more Singaporeans would like approach them, try to be friends with them, and understand their lives here, because they are doing a lot for Singapore. They are doing jobs that no Singaporean wants to do. Yeah, so I felt that this was a big win, that people were more aware and want to get more involved in
Looking at
helping
them
our migrant
betul-betul
workers.
more than just a worker, more than just someone, oh, you
Yeah.
come here to like buat rumah and that's it, kan? You come
Yeah,
here
our
untuk clean
migrant
and that's it.
workers, like they have their own like artists, like society, like they have poets, they have artists, they have dancers, and they do have like their own shows and gatherings here. They have books, like some of them have written and gotten their books published in Singapore also. So
Wow.
people should
Yeah.
definitely go and check that out. I think there's a book specifically on the pandemic situation and how migrant workers lived through the pandemic. Yeah, so these are definitely things that people should check out. Yeah.
Yeah. Jadi
Yeah.
bila saya berbual dengan Fanny dari DO tu tadi, ada banyak benda-benda yang kita mungkin tak terfikir. Like it's happening tapi dia macam you need someone to like point out to you. Oh, kau tengok kalau dia nak pergi kerja boleh ke tak boleh, nak pergi interview boleh ke tak boleh kan, things like that.
Mm,
So bila you berbual dengan these 3 migrant workers kan, Noor,
mm,
apakah antara benda-benda yang mereka cakap yang kita sebagai orang biasa, orang Singapura ni tak terfikir, oh ya, kita buat macam gitu kita tak
mm,
sensitif betul. Oh ya, kita tak
yeah.
fikir untuk buat macam gini kita ni tak
Mm,
terfikir kan?
mm. Yeah, so there were two, I think, main examples. So one of the migrant workers said that he was talking to his macam Singaporean colleague kat tempat kerja, and then the colleague cakap, oh, you can just work harder, like to earn more, like just work longer hours and things like that. And then the migrant worker said to him that actually we both do the same job, but you earn more than me because you are Singaporean. But when we go out, we spend the same amount of money. Like if I buy food, if I buy noodle and you buy noodles, we both will have to spend like $4. But that takes up a lot of my salary, whereas it's just a very small amount for you compared to your salary. And then when you take bus and I take bus, you have concession. I don't have concession. And when you go get like when you go to the clinic, maybe you have things like medical insurance, that you have CHAS, or you have like whatever scheme that can help Singaporeans, right? But for them, they don't. So everything is a lot more expensive for them, but they earn less. So we don't see that, and then we usually just be like, oh, you just have to work harder to earn more money, and you know that you come here to work to earn more money for your family, so just work harder. But of course that's very insensitive lah, because they do work very very hard, but they earn very very small salaries. And then another incident the migrant worker told us was like he spoke to a Singaporean, and the Singaporean was like, oh, you speak very good English for someone who's from Bangladesh. And then the migrant worker was quite taken aback, because he's like, oh, I was a university graduate when I was back home. Like, we are educated, we have a education system back home too, but Singaporeans just assume that because like there are migrant workers who can't speak English, but I don't think we should assume that all migrant workers cannot speak English and then we just don't talk to them. It's the same as like if us Asian people, we go to America and then some random person is like, oh, you speak very good English for like a Chinese person, or like you speak very good English for an Indian person, because they assume that we come from a country that can't speak English. And we are doing the same thing to our migrant workers also. And then we use that as an excuse not to make friends with them. Yeah, so these are like the two main examples
Benda-benda
that
untuk kita
I think
muhasabah
about.
diri. Just to reflect
Yeah.
on, like, do you do that accidentally? Have you ever dengan tak sengaja, like not on purpose to hurt someone? Like, it could be an ingrained mentality that
Mm.
that you will like tercakap apa tanpa sengaja.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
but
I
I mean, even though it's like tanpa sengaja, it's our tanggungjawab to kind of
untuk learn and
belajar
unlearn.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
I think this year is also of course, the catchphrase unlearn, and it was from last year actually, untuk
Mm.
unlearn and relearn,
Mm.
kan?
Yeah.
What I'm gonna ask you later on, like what were some of the
Mm.
things that yang you rasa macam tahun ni kita sebagai masyarakat Melayu Singapura, apakah benda-benda yang mungkin you rasa kita perlu untuk unlearn dan perlu untuk dapat perkasakan diri kita dengan belajar semula, faham semula
Mm.
pengertian dia. Maybe later on we can round up with
Mm.
that a bit, because like
Yeah.
we say, like, yes, oh, kita cakap tak sengaja, tak bererti you boleh buat lagi berulang kali. Tak sengaja means,
Mm.
oh, okay, time for you to reflect and see, like, what can I as a person do better, kan?
Yeah.
And also we want to say congratulations for these former residents yang memenangi hadiah $50,000, 50K for Singapore History Prize.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So that's Hidayah Amin. I think people might know her from her book on Gedong Kuning. Like Gedong Kuning is the house at Kampung Gelam that like it's still there, and I think a lot of
That's
people
a
don't
big
know about the
place. Okay.
history. Yeah, but like Hidayah Amin and her family, they used to stay there before the house got taken away by the government under the Land Acquisitions Act. So Hidayah wrote about Gadung Kuning also in the book that won the Singapore History Prize also. Like she spoke about her own family's experience and about Kampung Gelam's history, and she won the Singapore History Prize, which was a big deal because she's not a historian. She wrote mostly from her personal perspective, and she worked really hard on the book. Like she included like maps and diagrams in the book, so it was truly amazing, and she deserves like completely deserves that book prize. So very 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 happy for her, and she's one of the people we feature on our Kau Ilhamku series also right now. So like if you go to our profile, you'll be able to learn more about Hidayah and her family and the work that she's been doing, because she has her own publishing company, Halang Books, and
Oh,
they do
wow.
publish books for children with dyslexia, and she
Oh.
also helped publish a book written by a young girl about the migrant worker community in Singapore during the pandemic, and then the proceeds from the book were donated to migrant workers. So like Hidayah Amin and Halang Books, like they're doing a lot of things for the community. So we were very happy to see that she won the Singapore History Prize. And apart from Hidayah, there was also like a few other individual achievements from members of the community. So we had our first Rhodes Scholar. So the Rhodes Scholarship is like a big scholarship. It's almost, I think, it is a full ride scholarship, I think, when you go for like a master's program. So he's the first minority person to win the Rhodes Scholar, to be selected for the Rhodes Scholar.
That's a
I
big
think,
win.
yeah, his name
Yeah.
is Nur Hazim Abdul Nasir. He's 23, and he'll be pursuing 2 master's degrees in public policy and public policy research at the University of Oxford. Yeah, so
Wow.
yeah, very big deal. And then we
Big
also had
deal.
Fadila Abdul Rahman, who was the Lee Kuan Yew scholarship recipient. Um, and she is doing a public policy program, Dasa Awam, at Oxford also. She's, I think, currently undergoing the program. She's going to be there for about a year, and she also recently did like a Zoom session for people who wanted to know more about the scholarship application process and how to apply
Wow.
to Oxford, which was really really
Very
amazing.
kind.
She's
Yeah.
giving back to the community. She's making sure that other people have access
Wonderful.
to the same
Fadila.
information. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was really really great. And then we also have
That's a real feminist for you. Like macam
yeah
I'm just not going to like bask in my glory. Apa, oh,
yeah
I'm not going to to talk about how clever I am and how amazing I am, but let's talk about macam mana
Yeah.
you juga boleh dapat apa yang
Yeah.
I
So you
dapat.
open doors for others
Wow.
as well. Like you don't just close
Right.
the door after you get through the door,
Yeah.
right?
Well
Yeah.
done. Fadila, well
Yeah.
done. So
And then
proud.
next we have Shirin Hamid, I think, who is Chief Information Officer at who got selected to be Chief Information Officer at the International Monetary Fund. So this
Wow.
is also like a really big deal because in IT, like in tech, women are very underrepresented. And then
Betul.
you talk about minority women, even more underrepresented.
Yeah.
So the fact that she is very, very qualified and she got the job, that is really, really inspiring. Like I felt super inspired when I read about it, and I'm sure many girls are inspired by it because a lot of girls actually are told to avoid STEM subjects, so like science,
Mm.
tech,
Mm.
engineering, math. Like girls
Economics.
are pushed away from those subjects. Like girls are
Mm.
told to do language and arts, which is nothing
Betul.
wrong. Like if you're interested
Yeah,
in it,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
there is definitely that trend of pushing girls away from that. So to see
Mm-hmm.
her at this position at such a high level is definitely inspiring. It's definitely like an achievement to celebrate. And she won the Anugerah Jauhari Award, I think, recently. The one
That's a
by Berita
trailblazer.
Harian.
That's really a trailblazer.
Yeah.
I'm just like she's breaking glass ceilings and she's making her like me she being able to be appointed as the chief at
Chief.
IMF. It makes that macam people to make the other girls feel like, oh, it is possible
Yeah.
to do other
Yeah.
courses aside from what my
Mm.
family has told me to do, or how I see people around me have been doing, that it's
Mm.
possible to do outside what my family is
Yeah.
comfortable with, kan?
Mm. Yeah. So for sure, like these are all individual achievements,
Yeah,
but
betul.
very inspiring for the entire community. And hopefully we'll see a lot more of such things next year.
Jadi
Yeah.
Shirin Hamid juga dianugerahkan anugerah Jauhari juga.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another person yang kita mesti Google dan dapat tahu dan celebrate her as a person for us to be more inspired to inspire others, kan? Shirin
Yeah.
Hamid. Thank you, Noor. Untuk for letting us know all this. These are very important. I feel like yes, it's important for us to be in touch with social media, what's trending, what's not, but also for us important for us untuk dapat ambil tahu juga tentang perkara yang tak trending, tapi it brings change pada
Mm. Yeah.
the community.
And to celebrate the good things after such a difficult year.
Yes, yes. It's been
Yeah.
a difficult 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kan
Yes.
untuk setengah dari segi pekerjaan, pencarian kewangan and everything else. And what is this, Noor, that I'm seeing? Ni.
Oh, okay. So I guess to close off with like yeah, we still have time. In terms of lepak conversations, like our more concrete contributions, I guess. So for this year Ramadan, we had our first fundraiser. So
Oh,
Anna is like
nice.
the other half of lepak conversations, and she's
Mhm.
professionally a designer.
Mhm.
So she designed our Hari Raya Sampol and Kad Raya. Like we wanted to bring that
Very
back, like
nice.
being able to write Kad Raya and send to
Yeah.
relatives, especially because we can't visit that much this year, right? So
Yeah.
Anna came up with the idea and she designed everything, and we like I think Anna also did like the cutting of the paper and everything, and so the paper is recyclable, and we managed to get quite a lot of orders for it, and we raised close to 1.8K, and we donated all of the proceeds to Ain Society and PPIS. So
PPIS.
yeah, that was our contribution to the community for Ramadan. Yeah, and
Wow.
we also had our first anniversary this year, like you
Mhm.
mentioned. So for first anniversary, again Anna was spearheading this, and she wanted to ensure that we could celebrate our first anniversary in a way where we could share inspiring stories. So
Mm.
we had quite a few people on. We had Fairuz Jafar, who is an artist, and he talked about using his creative works for advocacy. And we
Yeah.
had you, and you spoke with us about how media shapes the way we think, about how it shapes our community. And then we spoke to Liana Damira,
Mhm.
who was the Red Dot
Yeah.
United candidate, and she wrote the book on like homelessness. So we talked to her about redefining success. We spoke to Shirin Chua, the co-founder of SG Muslims for Migrant Workers, on how she built that community to help migrant workers. And we spoke to Sarah Bagare, who spoke to us about being strong women, raising strong women. And we spoke to Amira, who's a registered art therapist. So we talked about mental health and mental health in the context of the Malay Muslim community and going for therapy and how important it is to go for therapy. And finally, we spoke to Fariza Saleh, who hosts the podcast Frankly My Dear. So I think that was also a really great conversation between Anna and Fariza, and they discussed about how to have difficult conversations, because that's also what Fariza does on her podcast. And I guess finally, to close off the year, Lepak Conversations also, like you, we also had the same idea to like kind of close off everything with like a good note, like the wins.
Good note, yeah.
Yeah, so we featured 5 different people. So like I said just now, we featured Hidayah Amin, who owns Palang Books, and she won that history prize. And then Nasri Bahrawi, who's a literary translator. And Nasri is also very inspiring. He talks about how translation works can help shape minds also. So an example he gave was like, if you look at the story about the ikan todak, is it the, yeah, like he said, the original work actually in Malay, right? It doesn't say whether the child who saves the village is a male or female. It actually doesn't say the gender, because in Malay our pronouns like dia, that kind of thing, it's not, we can't tell if it's male or female, right?
Yeah,
But when the
betul.
work got translated into like Arabic, into English, then those
Him.
languages have genders, and then it became a him. It became a male child that saved the village. But if it was translated by a person who was aware that actually it could be a female child, because Malay is a non-gendered language, right? Then that could shape the entire story in a different way, that it was a female child who was smart, who saved the entire village, you know. So even in his literary and translation work, he sees his role as somebody who should be aware of these little like patriarchal ideas in the works, and like being very aware of these things. So it was very
Interesting.
inspiring to talk to him. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
didn't even think of this. I didn't
I
even
didn't even
know.
think of it.
Yeah.
I nampak dekat Instagram you.
Mm.
What's his name again?
Nazri
Hidayah.
Bahrawi.
Nasri Bahrawi. It's very
Mm.
interesting because he also talked about how he is a literary translator. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I want to ask you, what's a literary translator? Kita tahu macam okay, orang yang mengalihkan bahasa kan, like literally
Mm.
translating words. But obviously you don't translate word for word. If you're a translator, a professional translator, you translate
Mm.
the context, like you could translate it, but in the correct context, dalam konteks yang
Mm.
betul, kan?
Mm. Yeah.
Jadi bila dia katakan khususnya dia literary translator, dan bila Noh cakap dengan saya itu adalah tugas dia untuk look
Mm.
at it as objectively as possible and not to like macam give
Mm.
a certain gender, give a certain agenda or like a
Mm.
patriarchy thing to it.
Mm.
I felt, oh wow, interesting. Tak
Mm.
terfikir kan?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I think it's really impressive lah, that he sees his role as a translator also to, help the community in some way.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
if he also doesn't realize these kind of like little intricacies in the works and things like that, then as readers we also don't know, like we probably won't pick up on it also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Then we also featured Fira Rahman, who is an illustrator and animator. She was one of the animators for the NDP music video this year. And actually, if you watch the NDP music video, there is a hijabi in the music video. So that was her wanting to make sure that people felt represented. And yeah, that was a really big thing also. And I mean, if you watch her video on our page, she's like so humble and like so chill. But she's so great at what she does. Yeah, so people should definitely check out her page. And then we featured Sarah Bagarib. We spoke to her about who inspires her and what motivates her to speak out on social issues. And lastly, we featured Riz Sunawan, who is someone who is fighting MND, a motor neuron disease, and he's so inspiring. He's talking about how he's trying to live life to the fullest, how he's trying to do
Yeah.
good every day.
Macam mana you interview Riz Sunawan, Noor? Because sekarang ni dia tak boleh bercakap, dia menggunakan mata untuk text. So is that how your interview is being done?
He can talk. He could, when we came over, he could like speak, and so we filmed like a very short portion of the video where he spoke to us about who inspires him. Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
he's able That's amazing. Because that means it has he could talk like macam like mungkin 3-4 patah perkataan then rest.
I mean, if you watch the video, actually he spoke for about 3 minutes, I think. So
That's
maybe
amazing.
a bit slower, and maybe the words may not sound as clear, but he
Mhm.
could still speak. And but he was also using that device and controlling it with his eyes to look at our Instagram page and to browse certain things, but he could still speak. And he got emotional also, talking about who inspires him. And like Anna and I got emotional looking at him, like he's so inspiring, and he's doing so much good for the community. He's raising awareness, and he's also one of the people who helped to set up the MND association in Singapore. And to him, that's going to be his legacy for other MND patients in future in Singapore. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the main, like that's what Lepak Conversations has been up to this year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful year untuk Lepak Conversations untuk mendekati lebih ramai lagi. I think in a year itself, you tak jangka yang you akan berbual, dapat reach out to so many people and having many people reach out to you juga untuk you jadikan be the platform for their voices juga, which is amazing. And I think we have covered a lot today. Terima kasih. Thanks to you and Anna juga. Thanks to you, Noor. Anna who's watching us also. The both of you, a perfect compliment untuk Lepak Conversations. And before we round up, jangan lupa untuk ikut Lepak Conversations. They're very active di Instagram, very active. They do the IG live, and if you missed it, it's okay. You actually boleh tonton semula their IG posts because you keep your
Yeah.
life as as your content, as your post tu
Mm.
dapat orang tengok semula, tonton semula your
Yeah.
interviews with inspiring people who have like macam perspektif yang kita tak terfikir yang akan ada. Kalau dapat kita close things off, what will be your last message, Noor?
I think you asked about just now. You said about what the
Yang
community
unlearn.
can unlearn and relearn, right?
Yeah,
I
untuk tahun
think
2021. Untuk this
um,
upcoming year.
I think just in general, I think
Hmm.
everybody can apply this. It's to be more open and more empathetic, because I think a lot, especially like for Lepak Conversations, where we do facilitate discussions online, we see that, if everybody started from a place of empathy and trying to understand the other person, then the conversation can go so much better. And you can, end up at a place that is so much kinder also. You understand each other's perspectives, and you can find how to move forward from there. So I think that's the thing that we have to relearn, how to be empathetic and open. The unlearning part, I guess, is unlearn being defensive. And that's something that I
That's
have to do
tough.
personally also. I think
Yeah, that's
everybody has to do
tough.
that. Because when you have a
Yeah.
certain position, you do defend your position very strongly, you get defensive, right? So that's definitely
Yeah.
something we have to unlearn.
Betul-betul.
Yeah.
Defensive. Because the moment orang cakap benda yang you tak setuju ataupun
Mm,
lain daripada kepercayaan you, apa yang you
mm.
percaya tu, you akan rasa macam you're wrong, I'm right. You're
Yeah,
wrong
like
and let me
you,
see how do I make
how
you
do I
see
bela
my
myself?
bela
Yeah,
myself. Betul betul betul.
yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting, Nur, untuk dapat kita ubah perangai defensif kita. That's something I got
Yeah.
to work on myself as well. Kau macam like,
Yeah, yeah,
am I?
same, same.
Am I? Am I? Am I? And that brings us to the point that you and Anna on almost every day bercakap tentang hal-hal yang very sensitive, yang kadang-kadang orang segan untuk cakap dan sebagainya. But I think it's also the choice of words that you use untuk bring
Mm,
forward that you just bring out an issue. You are not trying to bukan nak bergaduh, bukan
mm,
nak cari pasal, but this is
yeah.
how you feel as a
Mm,
person.
mm. Yeah, as a young person who will have to live
Mm.
with the consequences that people make now. Yeah.
Mm. Mm, mm. And any last closing words? Noor mewakili Lepak Conversation juga mewakili partner anda
Mm,
Anna dalam Lepak
mm,
Conversations.
I think we would really just want to like ucap terima kasih to everybody in the Malay Muslim community, to our followers who have just been very supportive, who have been willing to engage in difficult conversations with us. And to all our partners who have worked with us this year. We've had so many amazing people work with us this year, including you, Kak Fiza, and we are just very thankful for all those
We are very
collaborations.
thankful, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thankful. Like these are some of the work that they have done di Instagram mereka, all the interviews that they have that you can check out. Especially bila awak cakap yang Riz Sunawan di Temu Bual dan bercakap, I am just extremely impressed sebab the last I berbual dengan Riz, it was of course kalau aku bercakap dengan Riz it's always just text aja because he just use his eyes using that wonderful technology yang ada yang dah membolehkan orang tak boleh bercakap untuk dapat bercakap dengan orang, dan untuk dia dapat train his muscles with what he has untuk lakukan interview. Wow.
Yeah, it's on our page, like the video, and it's really emotional and inspiring to watch him speak about who inspires him and what motivates him in life. And people should watch it, like learn his story and support the MND association, support Riz. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Noor. Jangan lupa kalau mereka have any other initiatives, do help them. They do a lot of fundraising for so many other initiatives. InsyaAllah tahun ini dengan lebih banyak lagi orang yang kenal dengan Lepak Conversations, may there be more help for untuk lebih banyak lagi community. And thank you, Noor, and please send my love pada Ana.
Thank you.
Ini dia Noor dari Lepak Conversations.
Tengok dia, penampilan kau sepenuhnya. Setiap langkah bertenaga.